Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Um, I just want to give some details about our visit yesterday to Tenterfield and Wallangarra. Members of Northern Railway Defenders Forum traveled from Armidale to Wallangarra in the first place, and secondly to Tenterfield, where we had a meeting with the mayor, councillors, and members of the community at the bowling club. So we drove to Wallangarra Cafe, which is in the old railway building, which is nicely renovated and maintained by a group of volunteers. So the moment we crossed from New South Wales to Queensland side, actually you could see a nice painted model rail train, indicating how seriously they take railway issues in Queensland compared to New South Wales. So we had a group of people from Wallangarra and surrounding areas. We had coffee with them and had the exchange of ideas and views. And they are also very concerned about the lack of train services to Wallangarra, and including actually public transport, lack of public transport. So we spent about an hour and a quarter with them, and we exchanged our information. And Alan, who is a former engineer, was also there, and several others. They also signed our petition to the upper house of, Legislative Assembly, New South Wales Parliament, where we are trying to collect signatures for about 10,000 signatures, but so far we have more than 8,000 signatures collected. So looking at the Wallangarra railway station and the state of the infrastructure there, I mean, one suggestion made by the people we met was that we need to work with the Queensland government somehow in order to get them interested in at least starting train services from their side to Wallangarra. And their gauge is narrow gauge, whereas New South Wales gauge is standard gauge. So that is also a problem to some extent. It's an engineering problem that can be resolved by the sort of professionals, engineers and so on, technicians. So then we moved to bowling club in Tenterfield, and on the way we saw, actually both ways we saw between Tenterfield and Wallangarra, there is one or two wooden rail bridges in a state of despair, and one is actually falling down, more or less about to fall down. And I wanted to take a picture of that, but somehow the circumstances didn't allow, because we were a bit late for the lunch and meeting at the bowling club. So at the bowling club, there was a group of people, including Clive, who runs a radio program in Tenterfield, and Alan, of course, the former engineer, was there, and few councillors were there, and the president of Ratepayers Association was there, and a few others as well, including Wendy and several others. So after lunch, which was fabulous, we enjoyed the lunch at the bowling club, and fish and chips was there, and several other typical club meals, and the bar was good, and people enjoyed their drinks as well. So we began the meeting around 1:30 p.m., a little bit later in the meeting room. The club fortunately provided us the meeting room as well without any charge. So in the meeting there was the mayor of Tenterfield, Bronwyn, and a few other councillors, as well as I said before, other members of the community. So I spoke a little bit about where we come from, what we have been doing in terms of petitions, writing submissions to the government, and so on, and our survey of community views, and so on. And also I explained the various myths that have been constructed in the community, in the minds of the people, saying that this railway services cannot be restored and it will never happen. It will cost billions of dollars, and where is the money? And that kind of attitudes prevailing in the community. Actually, it is very sad to see that the very residents of New England who are being impacted by the lack of government's inaction, both levels of government's inaction, to restore these rail services for over 30 years, the very people are adopting these kind of negativistic and fatalistic attitudes. Instead of that, I explained to the meeting there that we ought to be actually organizing ourselves, coordinating our activities, and demanding the government pay attention to our needs in this area. And we shouldn't be neglected and ignored any longer, because cross-border mobility is very important for cross-border growth, businesses, population transfer, as well as human well-being, because there are a lot of elderly people and sick people in that part of the world who need to access health services and so on. And many prefer to go to Queensland or Brisbane or Toowoomba and so on for their health services. And similarly, there are other services that they need, and so we need to accommodate this. I mean, merely because they live at the edge of New South Wales state or New England regional areas edge, it doesn't mean that they deserve the same treatment like anybody else in other cities and towns. So I made that point very clear, and unless we jump up and down asking what we want, and I explained that the politicians will never give any attention to our issues. So if somebody writes a letter to the MP, and then they will get a reply back if they are lucky, explaining something and something, but then the problem remains. But problem not only remains, it continues. So then, of course, Matthew Tierney, our co-convener of Northern Railway Defenders Forum, spoke by Zoom, and he explained various aspects of the issue and what happened during the time when rail services were stopped to Armidale, and the people got together and there was a big rally at the Armidale station, and so on, so on. And he was very intimately involved with that campaign. And after that, of course, Margaret O'Connor, a councillor in the Armidale Regional Council, but she spoke in a personal capacity and explained the importance of promoting cross-border economic growth and how important infrastructure, railway infrastructure for that kind of cross-border economic growth as well. And also she explained some data about the costings. Costings is an important issue which comes up every now and again when we talk about this bringing trains back to this northern part of New England. And so she had obtained some figures from our colleague Dr. Angus Witherby, who is preparing a business case for us for the section between Armidale and Glen Innes. So according to her, I think it is about $1 million or close to that amount that is required per kilometer, 1 million per kilometer required to restore this line all the way up to Tenterfield and Wallangarra. But then these costs can vary depending on the purpose. If you want to run a coal train, loaded double-decker coal train, of course you need a much better railway line. But if you want to run passenger services between Armidale and Brisbane or even Wallangarra, then of course you don't need that much that level of quality and strength in the rail tracks. So on the other hand, if a business person like David Peters, who likes to relocate his organic food manufacturing industry to Llangollen, plans to do, I mean, it only requires changing 1 in 4 sleepers. And so his estimate is about 5 to 7 million for the section between Armidale and Llangollen, which is required to restore the line for fit for his purpose. So we then, of course, opened the floor, and then the mayor of Tenterfield, she spoke very well, and she pointed out some of the issues that are faced by her council. And also when it comes to the rail trail issue, she clearly pointed out that her council doesn't want to go for a rail trail because the maintenance cost, because of the high maintenance cost. And she said her council doesn't want to bear the maintenance cost of a rail trail. So therefore, they are not in favor of a rail trail, but they are very much interested in any other proposals for using the rail line, restoring the rail line for either for tourism purposes or passenger rail services. So we had a sort of open discussion after that, explaining different ideas and proposals and so on. So actually, I must mention here that this collaboration between us and the Tenterfield Council was facilitated by Bruce Mills, who is the Economic Development Officer there, and I must acknowledge his cooperation with us. So another suggestion made by people in the meeting there was that we should actually try to work with Queensland government. I think I mentioned briefly about this before, and unless we get the support of Queensland government, I mean, one mentioned that there is no point in having trains only up to Wallangarra from the New South Wales side. But the thing is, I mean, these things have to happen in stages, step by step. So having train services between Armidale and Brisbane is the preferred option because we don't have direct public transport between Armidale and Brisbane at the moment, either in terms of coaches as it used to be before, or trains. So therefore, I mean, people are in a kind of a black hole. And I was told that people in Tenterfield and Glenninnis also, for that matter, they have to go down to Grafton in order to catch a train or coach to go to Brisbane. Sometimes this involves overnight stays as well. Imagine how difficult it is for a sort of elderly person or a sick person. So this is where we are. I mean, whereas the state government is spending about $75 billion for regional infrastructure, why aren't they? Why is that the authorities, the Minister for Regional Transport and Roads, Mr. Sam Faraway, is not interested in looking into this area and the neglect that has happened so far? So there's an election coming in March, and this is the best time to focus attention by the government politicians about this issue. So we also then we traveled back, and on the way back, our friend Sally Gilder from Glencoe wanted to show us some of the remaining railway infrastructure between Glencoe and Ben Lomond. So she took us through a back road and showed various cuttings and various embankments and the sort of steep places where the railway goes and the flat areas. And according to her, railway corridor is about 40 meters, roughly 40 meters wide. But in some places where there are embankments, there is no way that the Armidale Council or Glenins Council is going to build a fence and protect the cyclists for a rail trail. So at the moment, of course, there are cows and cattle occupying the rail line and on both sides of the line. So I took some pictures as well. So as we approached Ben Lomond, actually the storm hit us, and we got back to New England Highway to go back to Armidale with great difficulty. So this is in essence what happened, and of course we gave copies of our petition to the Legislative Assembly, and also we gave an information sheet about Northern Railway Defenders Forum, and with links to our petitions and the survey as well. We have a Facebook page as well. If you Google Northern Railway Defenders Forum, you can easily find it. And finally, I mean, another idea we have among our group is that to hold a sort of public forum in Armidale in February, maybe mid-February to late February. So we'll be making announcements about this and the venue and the date and time for you to understand. So thank you very much for listening, and I will make another update maybe early in the new year. Goodbye.